Hello de Mefe de Meg. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. Today's topic of discussion is mental wellness. And the conversation around mental wellness, I want to talk about our non-shared experiences. But more specifically, I want to talk about how important it is for us as we figure out who we are and as we find alignment with who we are, how that also involves being at peace with our non-shared experiences. And it would be interesting, it's an interesting conversation to have because a lot of us really try to dial down, we try to really diminish all of the ways that we find that we're different from the people that we associate with. We want to do our best to conform to those people around us, but oftentimes in conforming to what we think are the norms and the ideals and to what we think is sort of the archetype of individual within that specific setting, the more of us we erase, right? We experience a bit of identity erasure that way. And a lot of us, we have spent so much of our lives figuring out how best to show up, how best to present ourselves. We're so good at impression management that a lot of who we are stays hidden. And what happens when it is the case that we hide bits of ourselves is that we feel shame with those bits, even if we don't realize why it is that we've decided to hide those bits and pieces. If there are parts of yourself that you don't feel comfortable sharing and you've never given yourself the opportunity to share, then that can create a lot of shame and discomfort with your sense of self or with your sense of identity. And you don't ever want to feel like you're in conflict with who you are because of how you choose to show up and how you choose to share, because you recognize or you feel that the people that you want to align to would judge you if they were to be aware of those non-shared experiences. So I think that it's really important that we find an opportunity to speak our non-shared experiences out loud. When we think non-shared experiences, we think that those only translate as traumatic experiences. So some of the experiences that really deviate us far away from the norm are some of the traumatic things that we've experienced, things that not very many people have experienced. And this can be anything from experiencing tragedy at home, tragedy, an accident, a physical injury that took a lot of time to rehabilitate. I mean, there's so many different ways that non-shared experiences translate, but they don't necessarily need to be the traumas in our life, but though they often are. But even in having the courage to speak to the traumas that you've had, to see if whether or not in speaking to them you find alignment, but not only hoping to find alignment, expecting to find alignment, recognizing that you're not with your people if you can't speak your truth and be open and honest about the things that you've survived and you are met with judgment. A lot of the things that we've survived, a lot of our non-shared experiences are not things that we chose. So if they're not things that we chose, why should we feel shame about them, right? We shouldn't feel shame about them. I don't believe in shame. I don't think that shame is something that we should allow to manifest and to fester in our lives. Like, all of us have things that have happened to us or that we have done that we maybe wish went differently, but it didn't. But that builds into our individuality. It builds into our character. A lot of the lessons that we carry, a lot of the themes and the elements that underlie our decision making are fed by our non-shared experiences. I want to have a conversation about how we break away from keeping those non-shared experiences buried, because when we keep those experiences buried, we keep parts of ourselves buried as well. But also finding the right medium, finding the right opportunity to speak them out loud. Like, you never want to put yourself in a position where you yourself feel uncomfortable with sharing. I think that there is a privilege in self-disclosure, and talking about our non-shared experiences is a form of self-disclosure, but it also gives other people the courage to talk about their own non-shared experiences. And I think the more that we normalize being different and being accepted for those differences, the more we give other people to do that and to embrace their sense of self, embrace their individuality, especially for the people who really struggle because they come from very homogeneous settings, right? So if you come from a small little town like mine, the town that I grew up in, like, there's not a whole lot of difference. And even if there's like a difference by way of like how people show up physically, like, people typically have the same mindset about things. They think the same around things. You have sort of this group thing built in small, tiny communities because those communities function, they work based on a collaboration. And collaboration is really found in a set of collective ideals. So people tend to conform to those ideals, conform to those beliefs, and hide the parts of themselves that they don't feel aligned. And it's problematic because you can get really, really close to someone. If part of you feels like you can only stay close to them if you keep parts of yourself hidden, then that's its own form of self-betrayal. And I think too many of us have been conditioned to be comfortable with self-betrayal, and I think that having relationships where you don't feel like you can be open and honest about all of the elements of your life, all of the areas of your life, I think it really does put a limit on that relationship. I think sometimes you don't give people the credit that they deserve because a lot of people wouldn't judge you the way that you think, but you wouldn't know unless you share. So I want to talk a little bit about our non-shared experiences. I think all of us are shaped by our non-shared experiences, whether we share them or not, but all of us need to think about, well, how did this experience shape my becoming? Who have I chosen to become as a result of this experience? And if you don't don't know yet, those are really great questions to ask yourself. Who are you going to allow yourself to become because of this experience that fundamentally shifted the way that you see the world around you? And so when I talk about non-shared experiences, I'm not talking about growing up eating a specific food different from someone else. I'm talking about those kinds of experiences that are significant enough where you remember who you were or how you identified before that experience and the shift that took place as a result of that experience. And you can feel that that experience in and of itself, it shifted and changed the way that you saw yourself relating to others, relating to yourself, showing up as well. And so it's these experiences that have such a profound impact on our individuality and have such a profound impact on our becoming that I feel are important to share, because they do shift and change the way that we orient in the world around us. But a lot of us feel shame about articulating why that is the case. And so I've had my own fair share of what I consider to be significant non-shared experiences. So non-shared experiences that were significant enough that they definitely created a bit of a fissure between me and the people that I related to before and the people that I found myself gravitating towards afterwards, because I felt that the experience in and of itself put me in a different mindset, or I had a different mindset or a different way of thinking that aligned me to different people. And I think a lot of the times we struggle to find that evolution in ourselves and recognize like who we could be better aligned to, because we're not sharing, because we're not being vocal, because we're not being honest about how those experiences have impacted us. And so I think that it's just so important that as we embrace individuality, what comes with embracing individuality are all of the things that layer into our sense of self. And what layers into your sense of self is not necessarily going to be the things that layer into my sense of self, but all of us have these experiences that are specific to us, and maybe a few people, if we really do the digging, might have had a similar experience. But they're the experiences that make us show up differently. They build into our uniqueness. They build into our difference, the difference factor. And because I'm someone who values difference, I find myself always gravitating towards people who are so different from me, because I can learn so much from them. I'm so curious about who they are and how they became that way. I'm not as interested in meeting with people who've had the same life trajectory as me, because there's no growth there, right? Not to say that I don't have people in my life who had similar trajectories, but I find that I like the challenge and the growth that comes with building a bridge to different perspectives, building a bridge, building understanding from two completely different points of view. I think that synergy happens when you have different points of view, different ways of thinking, different perspectives, trying to build a bridge between one another to create a higher understanding of things. And so part of that comes with first abandoning the shame that comes with the non-shared experiences that we have. Just because you've experienced something that other people have not experienced doesn't make you a social pariah. And I think sometimes people want to treat us that way because they don't know how they feel about our non-shared experiences. Like if you're someone who experienced something that is fairly public and people don't know how to deal with it, they don't know how to carry that with you, so they treat you a little bit differently as they try to figure out how to navigate that experience of yours, trying to honor it while not overstepping. I think we can all figure that out together for vocal. So I think that that's the thing that I want to leave you with, to think about how you can bring your non-shared experiences to the forefront, to the conversations that you have, to the ways that you connect and interact with other people. Be more vocal about the parts of your existence, part of your life that you tend to shy away from speaking to out loud because you're too afraid that it will have a spotlight on you in a way that you're not comfortable with. I think all of us need to be comfortable with our individuality, comfortable with our uniqueness, and that means comfortable with our non-shared experiences and speaking to those experiences and understanding that those experiences definitely do build into our becoming, they build into our individuality, and they build into the people that we choose to be in the future. I once had a mentor who told me, genius is something that emerges with time, with experience, and with exposure. And a lot of us, we're on our way to genius, but the only way that we can break through that barrier is to be very confident that the things that we've experienced are exactly what we were supposed to experience, and that we are all exactly where we're supposed to be at any given moment in time. So that's the topic I wanted to talk about today, some food for thought for you. If I have piqued your interest, then I do invite you to join us on our website. We do host live events at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future. So definitely check that out. We do provide package plans as well if you find yourself interested in joining our community on an ongoing basis. And we also do provide parent-child workshops focusing on cultivating that leadership development in children, where we focus on cultivating critical thinking and that character development to give children the foundation so that when they themselves experience those non-shared experiences that make them feel a little bit alienated, that really do highlight the way that they are different, that they can carry that difference with pride, they can carry that difference with confidence, because all of us should be confident about the things that build into our individuality and the things that make us different. So that was it. If you're still here, we are on the road to 1K, so definitely follow us, leave us a like, and I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.